I can't believe what just happened. I'm still shaking as I write this, tears drying on my cheeks. But they're no longer tears of pain. They're tears of pure determination. It all started this morning, my 35th birthday. It should have been special. At least that's what birthdays were always supposed to be. But since I married Richard 7 years ago, my birthdays became just another reminder of how little he actually cared. I woke up early, as usual, made breakfast for him and his parents, who had come to stay for a few days. No one mentioned it was my birthday as I served eggs and coffee. I pretended I didn't care, that I didn't even remember myself. But I did. Oh, I did. "Good morning, everyone," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Hope you enjoy breakfast." My mother-in-law barely looked up from her phone. My father-in-law mumbled something unintelligible. And Richard, he just continued reading his newspaper. "You know what day it is, don't you?" I finally dared to ask, my voice smaller than I would have liked. Richard slowly lowered his newspaper. His eyes met mine, cold and distant as always. "Tuesday?" he replied, with a slight smirk on his lips. My mother-in-law let out a little chuckle. "Oh, Richard, don't be like that. It's her birthday. You should at least pretend to care." I wasn't sure what hurt more, Richard's indifference or the pretend in my mother-in-law's sentence. "Actually," I said, trying to maintain my composure, "I have something to show you all." I got up and went to get my purse. Inside was something I'd been saving for this exact moment. A photograph. But not just any photograph. For the past 3 years, I had been building my own natural cosmetics business in secret. At first, I only sold to friends and neighbors. Then I opened a small online store. And finally, 6 months ago, a major investor became interested in my brand. Richard knew nothing about this. Every time I mentioned my dreams of having my own business, he would laugh. "You don't know anything about business," he would say. "Leave that to people who have a brain for numbers." The man who once promised to support me in everything had become my biggest obstacle. But secretly, I kept going. I returned to the breakfast table with the photograph in hand. It was a print proof that Forbes had sent me. Yes, Forbes. My brand had been selected as one of the year's most promising startups, and I would be appearing on the cover of the next edition. The magazine would be published that very afternoon, but I had an advance copy. "I wanted to share something with you," I said, placing the photo on the table. Richard looked at the image with confusion at first, then with disbelief. It was me, dressed in an elegant white suit, with the Forbes logo in the upper corner. "What is this nonsense?" he asked, his voice rising. "It's not nonsense," I replied, feeling a strange calmness. "It's the Forbes cover that comes out today. My natural cosmetics company, the one I started 3 years ago, the one you always thought was a waste of time." Richard's face transformed. I saw something I had never seen in him before. Fear. For a brief moment, I saw fear in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by rage. "Have you lost your mind?" he shouted, standing up from his chair. "You think you can do something like this without consulting me? You think you can succeed without me?" Before I could respond, he took the photograph in his hands and tore it to pieces. Right there, in front of me, in front of his parents. "This is ridiculous," he continued, throwing the pieces into the air. "You can't be on Forbes, you can't be successful. You're nobody without me." His words hit me like slaps. But for the first time, I didn't crumble. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. Instead, I smiled. "It's too late, Richard," I said, my voice surprisingly firm. "The issue goes public today. It's already done." I took out my phone and showed him the email from the Forbes editor confirming the publication time, 11:00 a.m. It was exactly that time. Richard's face paled when he realized I wasn't lying, that this wasn't a fantasy or a dream. It was real. "Impossible," he muttered. You wouldn't know how." "Turns out I do know, Richard. I always knew. You just never wanted to see it." I stood up from the table, picked up my purse, and headed for the door. But before leaving, I turned back to them. "By the way, I just signed a distribution deal with the largest chain in the country. They valued my company at $15 million. I guess that means I don't need this anymore." I took off my wedding ring and left it on the table. "Happy birthday to me," I said, and walked out the door. I hadn't taken 5 steps when I heard Richard coming after me. His voice, once firm and controlling, now sounded desperate. "Emily, wait, don't be ridiculous," he said, catching up to me on the sidewalk. "I was joking. Of course I'm proud of you." I looked him in the eyes and saw something I'd never seen before: panic. The panic of a man who realizes that the power he thought he had is rapidly fading away. "No, Richard, you weren't joking," I replied calmly. "You were showing who you really are, and thank you for that, because you've given me the clarity I needed." His face quickly changed from panic to anger. "You think you can just leave? After everything I've done for you? I made you who you are." That phrase, that damn phrase he had used so many times to keep me small, to keep me grateful, to keep me under his control. "No, Richard, I became who I am despite you, not because of you, and that's the difference." My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a notification. The digital edition of Forbes had just been published. I opened the link and showed Richard the cover. My face, my name, my company. "This is what I'm capable of doing when I don't have someone constantly telling me I can't do it," I said. Richard stared at the screen, speechless for the first time since I'd known him. I watched as reality hit him like a cold wave. I was no longer the insecure woman he had met. I no longer needed his approval, his permission, or his support. "You can keep the house," I finally said. "My lawyers will be in touch with you about the divorce details." And with that, I walked away. With each step I took, I felt lighter, as if I was leaving behind not just Richard, but all the years of doubt, of insecurity, of believing I wasn't good enough. As I walked, my phone started ringing nonstop. They were notifications from Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. People were sharing the Forbes cover, congratulating me, tagging me. My story was reaching thousands of people. I stopped at a nearby cafe and ordered a cappuccino. I needed a moment to breathe, to take in everything that had happened in the last hour. The barista recognized me immediately. "It's you, the Forbes lady," he exclaimed enthusiastically. "I just saw your cover. It's amazing what you've accomplished." I thanked him with a genuine smile. It was strange to be recognized, but also incredibly validating after years of being invisible. While enjoying my coffee, my phone rang again. It was Lucy, my best friend, and the only person who knew everything about my secret business. "You did it!" she screamed as soon as I answered. "You're on the freaking cover of Forbes, and you look spectacular!" I couldn't help but laugh. "Yes, and I just left Richard." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "Really? You finally did it?" "He tore up my Forbes photo in front of me," I explained, but he didn't know it was already published. I showed him the actual cover on my phone and, well, I left my ring on the table and walked out. "Oh my God!" Lucy exclaimed. "I'm so proud of you. Where are you now? I'm coming over." I gave her the address of the cafe, and 15 minutes later, Lucy was walking through the door. She hugged me so tight she almost knocked the wind out of me. "You're my hero, you know that?" she said, sitting across from me. "What you've accomplished against all odds, with Richard undermining you at every turn, it's incredible." I smiled at her, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. "Sometimes I can't believe it's really happening." "Well, believe it because it is real," said Lucy, showing me her phone. "Your cover is already trending on Twitter." Indeed, the hashtag #EmilyOnForbes was in the national trends. People were sharing my story, inspired by how I had built my company from scratch. "There's something I haven't told you," I said, leaning towards Lucy. "The distribution offer, it's for $20 million, not $15 million, and they want me to be the face of the brand across North America." Lucy's eyes widened. "Emily, that's huge." "I know," I replied, still processing it myself. A year ago, I was mixing creams in my kitchen while Richard made fun of my little hobby. And now you're a damn icon," Lucy finished. My phone vibrated with an incoming call. It was an unknown number. "Emily Collins?" said a voice when I answered. "Yes, that's me." "I'm Alexander Mendez from CNN. We'd love to have you on this afternoon for a live interview about your Forbes cover and your amazing business story." I looked at Lucy, my mouth hanging open. I gestured to explain what was happening, and she started doing excited little jumps in her seat. "Of course," I responded. "I'd be delighted." After arranging the details and hanging up, Lucy hugged me again. "CNN, this is insane." "I know," I said, feeling like I could finally breathe fully after years of holding my breath. "It's like my whole life has been waiting for this moment." "What do you think Richard will do when he sees you on CNN?" Lucy asked. I thought about it for a moment. "He'll probably try to take credit somehow. Say he always supported me, that it was his idea from the beginning." "How pathetic," Lucy snorted. "It is," I nodded. "But I don't care anymore. He has no power over me anymore." My phone rang again. This time it was my mother-in-law. I hesitated before answering, but finally did. "Emily," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "I saw the cover. It's impressive. I had no idea you'd been working on this." "Thank you, Mrs. Collins," I replied formally. "Richard is devastated," she continued. "I've never seen him like this. He says he made a terrible mistake and wants to talk to you." I felt a familiar pang, the need to give in, to comfort, to put Richard's needs above my own. It was a pattern I had followed for too long. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing more to talk about," I said firmly. "Richard made it very clear what he thinks of me this morning." "People say things they don't mean when they're surprised," my mother-in-law argued. "He loves you, Emily." "No," I replied with a clarity that surprised even me. "He loves controlling me. There's a big difference." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I understand," she finally said. "I think I always knew. It's just hard to admit it when it's your own son." "I know," I replied more gently, "and I'm sorry for you, but I have to do what's best for me now." After hanging up, Lucy looked at me with admiration. "Who are you, and what have you done with my friend who always said yes to everything?" I smiled. I think I finally found my voice. We headed to my apartment, a place I had secretly bought 3 months ago, anticipating this day. I needed to prepare for the CNN interview, but first, I wanted a moment to reflect. While Lucy rummaged through my closet looking for the perfect outfit, I sat on the balcony, watching the city stretch out before me. I thought about all the times Richard had minimized my dreams, all the times he had made me feel small. "You don't understand how the real world works, Emily," he used to say. "You should be grateful that I handle the important things." And I had believed him. For years, I had believed him when he said I wasn't smart enough, savvy enough, strong enough to succeed on my own. My phone pinged with a text message. It was Richard. "Please come home. We can fix this. I'm proud of you. I've always been proud." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Proud. Now he was proud. Now that I was on the cover of Forbes, now that CNN wanted to interview me, now that my market value was evident to everyone. But I remembered his face when he tore up my photo this morning. The anger, the contempt, the disbelief that I could achieve something significant without him. That was the truth of Richard. Everything else was a lie. I didn't respond to him. Instead, I wrote a post for Instagram. "Today is my 35th birthday, and I've given myself the best possible gift, my freedom. For years, someone very close to me told me I couldn't succeed on my own. This morning, that same person tore up my Forbes photo in front of me, not knowing the magazine had already been released. Sometimes, the best answer isn't to argue, but simply to shine. Don't let anyone dim your light." I attached a photo of me holding the Forbes magazine. Within minutes, likes and comments began flooding the post. Lucy came out to the balcony with an elegant black dress in hand. "This is perfect for CNN," she said, then noticed my expression. "What's wrong?" I showed her Richard's message and my post in response. "That's powerful," she said, "and completely true." "You know what's the saddest thing?" I said, looking out at the city. "For so long, I believed I needed him to be somebody. I believed that without him, I would be lost. But it turns out it was the other way around. He was the one who needed me to feel important. Lucy nodded, sitting beside me. Narcissists are like that. They feed off your insecurity, and when you don't have it anymore, they panic. Well, let him panic, I said, feeling a wave of liberation. Because I will never make myself small again to make someone else feel big. My phone rang again. This time it was Alexander from CNN, confirming the final details for the interview. "Let's go," said Lucy, standing up. "You have an interview to give, and a world to conquer." As we were getting ready to leave, I received another message. This time it was from my mother, who lived in another city, and whom I hadn't spoken to much lately, mainly because Richard had never liked her. "I just saw your Forbes cover, my girl. I always knew you would do extraordinary things. I'm so proud of you. And even prouder that you've finally freed yourself from that man. I love you." Tears filled my eyes. My mother had always seen through Richard, had seen the way he manipulated and controlled me, but I had been too blinded by what I thought was love to listen to her. "I love you too, Mom," I replied, "and you were right all along." With one last glance at my reflection in the mirror, I felt ready. Not just for the CNN interview, but for everything that would come after. A new life. One where I was in control. "Let's show them who you really are," Lucy said with a smile. And that was exactly what I planned to do. The car ride to CNN was surreal. Streets I had walked down 100 times before suddenly looked different, brighter, more full of possibility. "Are you nervous?" Lucy asked, squeezing my hand. "Strangely, no," I replied, and it was true. The fear that had been my constant companion for so many years, fear of disappointing, fear of not being enough, fear of making Richard angry, was gone. In its place was a calm certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. As we pulled up to the CNN building, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Richard's sister, Olivia. "I just heard what happened. I wanted you to know I'm on your side. Always have been. Richard was lucky to have you, and he blew it. Go shine on CNN. I'll be watching." I smiled. Olivia and I had always gotten along, much to Richard's annoyance. She saw through him in a way that only siblings can. But family loyalty had kept her quiet, until now. "Thank you," I texted back. "That means more than you know." Inside the CNN building, I was whisked away to makeup and wardrobe. Everyone was professional, but also buzzing with an energy I could feel. My story. The unknown entrepreneur who had built a multi-million-dollar company right under her controlling husband's nose had clearly struck a chord. "We've been getting calls nonstop since we announced you'd be on," the producer told me as they fitted me with a microphone. "People are inspired by what you've done." I nodded, still trying to process it all. Just this morning, I had been making breakfast for my husband and in-laws, silently seething that they had forgotten my birthday. And now I was about to be interviewed on national television. "5 minutes, Miss Collins," someone called out. Lucy gave me a thumbs up from behind the camera. "You've got this," she mouthed. The lights were bright as I took my seat across from Alexander Mendez, the CNN anchor. He had a kind face and a reputation for fair interviews. "So, Emily Collins," he began once we were live. "You're the talk of the business world today. A woman who built a $20 million company in secret while her husband told her she couldn't succeed. Tell us how this extraordinary journey began." I took a deep breath and began to tell my story. How I had always been interested in natural skincare. How I had started experimenting in my kitchen. How the first products I made were for friends who had sensitive skin. But the turning point, I said, was when my husband laughed at me for suggesting I could turn it into a real business. Something inside me just snapped. Not in an angry way, but in a clarifying way. I realized that if I was ever going to do this, I would have to do it without his knowledge or support. "That must have been incredibly difficult," Alexander said. "It was," I nodded. I was essentially living a double life. During the day, I was the dutiful wife he expected me to be. But early mornings, late nights, whenever he was away on business, that's when I built my company. And he never suspected? I smiled, remembering. He once found a spreadsheet I had left open on my laptop. It showed projected earnings in the millions. He laughed and said, Nice fantasy, babe. That's how convinced he was that I couldn't succeed. Alexander shook his head in disbelief. And yet, here you are, on the cover of Forbes, with a $20 million distribution deal. What does that feel like? Honestly, it feels like coming home to myself, like I've finally stepped into the person I was always meant to be. And what happened this morning? We've heard rumors about a dramatic confrontation. I hesitated for a moment, but decided to be honest. It was my birthday. I brought the advance copy of the Forbes cover to show my husband and his parents. He tore it up in front of me, saying I couldn't possibly be successful without him. There was an audible gasp from someone off camera. What he didn't know, I continued, was that the magazine was being published at that very moment. I showed him the real cover on my phone, left my wedding ring on the table, and walked out. Alexander leaned forward. That must have taken incredible courage. Not as much as you might think, I replied. When you've been made to feel small for so long, there's a point where you just can't do it anymore, where your true self refuses to be diminished any longer. The interview continued, with Alexander asking thoughtful questions about my business journey and the challenges I had faced. I found myself speaking with a confidence I had never felt before, as if all those years of hiding my true abilities had finally been released. Your cosmetics line focuses on natural ingredients for sensitive skin, Alexander noted. What inspired that specific focus? My best friend Lucy has always struggled with skin reactions to conventional products, I explained, glancing at Lucy, who was beaming from behind the camera. I started experimenting with gentle, natural formulations just to help her. When those worked, other friends asked for help too. That's when I realized there was a real market need. And now that need has translated into a $20 million business, Alexander said with an appreciative nod. What would you say to other women who might be in situations similar to what yours was? Women with dreams who are being told they can't succeed? I thought carefully before answering, knowing my words might reach someone who desperately needed to hear them. Trust yourself, I said finally. That quiet voice inside that knows what you're capable of? Listen to it, not the loud voices telling you what you can't do. And understand that sometimes the people closest to you may be the least supportive of your growth, because your success might challenge the dynamic they prefer. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you love yourself enough to grow anyway. The interview wrapped up shortly after, with Alexander thanking me and wishing me continued success. As soon as the cameras stopped rolling, the studio erupted in applause. That was incredible, the producer said, rushing over. We've been flooded with positive comments on our social media. People are inspired by your story. Lucy embraced me tightly. You were amazing, she whispered. I'm so damn proud of you. As we were preparing to leave, a young woman from the makeup department approached hesitantly. Ms. Collins, she said, her voice slightly shaky. I just wanted to say, I've been watching from the sidelines, and your story? It's like you're telling my story too. My boyfriend always tells me my dreams of opening my own salon are silly. Hearing you today made me think maybe they're not so silly after all. I felt a lump form in my throat. They're not silly at all, I assured her. What's your name? Jasmine, she replied. Well, Jasmine, when you open that salon, I want to be your first client. Her eyes widened. Really? Absolutely, I said, handing her my business card. Call me when you're ready. As Lucy and I left the CNN building, a small crowd had gathered outside. Word had spread about my interview, and people wanted to see the woman who had built a secret empire under her controlling husband's nose. Emily! Emily! They called out. Some held up their phones, showing the Forbes cover. Others just wanted to shake my hand or tell me how my story had touched them. It was overwhelming, but also deeply moving. For so long, I had lived in Richard's shadow, believing his narrative that I was nothing special. Now, strangers were looking at me like I was some kind of hero. How are you handling all this? Lucy asked as we finally made it to the car. I'm not sure, I admitted. Part of me still can't believe it's happening. It's like I'm watching someone else's life unfold. Well, get used to it, Lucy said with a grin, because this is just the beginning. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was my lawyer, Samantha. "Emily, I've been trying to reach you," she said when I answered. "I just saw you on CNN. Congratulations. But we need to talk about Richard. He's been calling my office nonstop." I sighed. What does he want? "He's making noise about shared marital assets, saying the company was developed during your marriage, so he's entitled to half." A cold anger settled in my stomach. Of course. Of course, Richard would try to claim credit and profits for the very business he had mocked and dismissed. "What are our options?" I asked. "Well, you were smart to keep detailed records of how you built this business without his knowledge or support," Samantha said. "And his public behavior, tearing up your Forbes photo, his documented history of belittling your business abilities, works in our favor. I think we can make a strong case that he has no claim to your company." "Do whatever you need to do," I said firmly. "I built this from nothing, with zero help from him. I won't let him take it from me now." After hanging up, I explained the situation to Lucy. "That snake," she hissed. "He spends years telling you you're incapable of business success, and the minute you prove him wrong, he wants half the money? Typical." "It's exactly what I would have expected from him," I said, feeling strangely calm. "He's predictable in his selfishness." When we arrived back at my apartment, I was surprised to find a delivery waiting. A stunning bouquet of roses with a card from the Forbes editorial team, congratulating me on my cover and the CNN interview. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. Recognition from people who valued my accomplishments on their own merits. As Lucy and I settled in with a bottle of champagne to celebrate, my phone rang again. This time, it was Richard. "Are you going to answer it?" Lucy asked, her eyebrows raised. I stared at his name flashing on the screen. For years, I would have dropped everything to answer his call, afraid of making him wait, afraid of his anger. But now? "No," I said, silencing the ringer. "Whatever he has to say, he can say it through our lawyers." The phone stopped ringing, but immediately lit up with a text. "I saw you on CNN. You made me look like a monster. This isn't fair, Emily. I supported you in my own way. You're twisting everything. We need to talk face to face, please." Lucy read the text over my shoulder and snorted. "Supported you in his own way? By tearing up your photo and telling you you'd never succeed? That's some creative revisionist history right there." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and clarity. This is who he is, Lucy. He genuinely believes his version of events. In his mind, he was the supportive husband, and I'm being unreasonable and ungrateful. "Are you going to respond?" Lucy asked. I thought about it for a moment, then typed, "Richard, I'm not trying to make you look like anything. I simply told the truth about my experience. I don't see any point in meeting face to face right now. Anything you need to discuss can go through our lawyers." I pressed send and put my phone down, determined not to let Richard's drama overshadow this day. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my champagne glass. "To new beginnings," Lucy echoed. Later that evening, after Lucy had gone home, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights. My phone had been buzzing constantly. Congratulatory messages, interview requests, social media notifications. I had turned off the ringer, needing some quiet to process everything. I found myself thinking about the journey that had led to this moment. 3 years ago, I was mixing my first batches of face cream in my kitchen, while Richard was at a business dinner. I remembered how my hands shook as I designed my first product label, afraid he might come home early and mock my efforts. I remembered the first time I made a sale to someone outside my immediate circle, a woman at a farmer's market who tried my sample and immediately bought 3 jars of face cream. The validation I felt in that moment was intoxicating. I remembered setting up my online store in secret, using Lucy's address for shipping supplies, the thrill of the first online orders, the late nights fulfilling them after Richard had gone to bed. And then, 8 months ago, the email that changed everything, an investor who had tried my products and wanted to talk about scaling the business. The meetings I took during yoga classes and lunch with friends. The careful planning to ensure Richard never found out. All of it had led to this day, to freedom, to success beyond what I had imagined possible. My phone lit up with another call from Richard. This time, I turned it off completely. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, especially with Richard trying to claim a share of my company. But tonight, I just wanted to savor this feeling of finally being seen for who I truly was. The next morning, I woke to the ping of emails flooding my inbox. The CNN interview had gone viral overnight, with clips being shared across social media platforms. Emily Collins and Forbes woman were trending hashtags. Among the emails was one from Good Morning America, requesting an interview. Another from Women's Business Monthly, wanting to feature my story in their next issue. A third from a major publishing house, inquiring about a potential memoir. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. For so long, I had been invisible, Richard's wife, nothing more. Now the world wanted to hear my voice, my story. As I was scrolling through the emails, trying to decide which to respond to first, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Emily Collins? This is Diane Reynolds, CEO of Luxe Beauty Corporation." My heart skipped a beat. Luxe Beauty was one of the largest beauty conglomerates in the world. "Yes, this is Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saw your interview on CNN yesterday, and I was impressed not just by your business acumen, but by your personal story," Diane said. "I'd like to meet with you to discuss a potential partnership, or perhaps even an acquisition offer for your company." I nearly dropped the phone. Luxe Beauty wanted to acquire my company, the company that Richard had dismissed as a cute little hobby. "I'd be very interested in having that conversation," I managed to say. "Excellent. My assistant will email you to set up a meeting. And Emily, what you've built is remarkable. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Then I laughed, a full, joyous laugh that felt like it was coming from the very depths of my being. How quickly life could change. 24 hours ago, I was making breakfast for a man who thought I was incapable of success. Now, the CEO of Luxe Beauty was calling to discuss acquiring my company. I called Lucy immediately to share the news. "Holy crap!" she exclaimed when I told her. "Luxe Beauty. Emily, do you know what this could mean? They could make you a multi-millionaire overnight." "It's surreal," I admitted. "I'm still trying to process it all." "You deserve every bit of this," Lucy said firmly. "Every single bit." After hanging up, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The spring air was crisp and invigorating, and I needed to feel grounded amid all the whirlwind changes. As I strolled through the park, I noticed people glancing at me, some doing double takes. My face had been all over the news and social media. I was recognizable now. It was a strange feeling. I stopped at a small cafe for coffee. As I waited in line, I overheard two women at a nearby table talking. "Did you see that woman on CNN? The one whose husband tore up her Forbes cover?" "Yes, what a powerful story. Can you imagine building a whole company in secret because your husband doesn't believe in you?" I couldn't stay with someone like that. No way. Me neither, but the way she handled it? Chef's kiss. Leaving her ring on the table and walking out after showing him the real cover? Iconic. I smiled to myself, keeping my head down. It was odd hearing strangers discuss my life, but also validating. They got it. They understood why I had to leave. When I returned to my apartment, there was a package waiting at the door. It was from my mother, a beautiful leather-bound journal with a note. "For the next chapter of your amazing journey, I always knew you had greatness in you. Love, Mom." Tears pricked my eyes. My mother had tried to warn me about Richard from the beginning. "He wants to dim your light," she had said after meeting him for the first time. I had dismissed her concerns, convinced that she just didn't know him like I did. But she had seen the truth about him long before I was ready to. I called her immediately. "I got your gift," I said when she answered. "It's perfect." "Not as perfect as watching my daughter reclaim her power on national television," she replied, her voice warm. "I've never been prouder, Emily." "I should have listened to you about Richard," I said, the words tumbling out. "You saw it from the beginning. Sometimes we have to learn things in our own time, in our own way," my mother said gently. "What matters is that you found your way back to yourself." After we hung up, I sat down with the new journal and began to write. About the past 3 years of building my business in secret, about the moment of truth with Richard. about what freedom felt like after years of emotional constraint. As I wrote, I realized that my story wasn't just about business success or even about leaving a controlling relationship. It was about reclaiming the voice that had been slowly silenced over years of subtle undermining and dismissal. It was about remembering who I was meant to be. My phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Emily, this is Olivia, Richard's sister. He's been drinking and saying he's going to come to your apartment to talk some sense into you. And I've tried to stop him, but he won't listen. Just wanted to warn you, stay safe." A chill ran through me. Richard had never been physically violent, but he had never been faced with this level of public humiliation either. I didn't want to find out how he might react. I called Lucy immediately. "Can I stay at your place tonight?" I asked. "Richard's on his way here, apparently, and I don't want to deal with him." "Of course," Lucy said without hesitation. "Pack a bag. I'll come pick you up in 15 minutes. As I threw some essentials into an overnight bag, I felt a flash of anger. Even now, Richard was disrupting my life, forcing me to leave my own home because he couldn't accept the new reality. But the anger quickly gave way to resolve. This was just one more challenge to navigate. It wouldn't derail everything I had worked for. Nothing would. Lucy arrived and helped me carry my bags to her car. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Richard's car turning onto my street. "Perfect timing," Lucy said, noticing it too. "Let him bang on your door all night. You're not there to hear it." At Lucy's apartment, we ordered takeout and opened a bottle of wine. Despite the situation with Richard, I felt strangely peaceful. "You know what's funny?" I said as we settled on her couch. "A week ago, the thought of Richard being angry with me would have sent me into a panic. I would have done anything to make it right." "And now?" Lucy asked. I took a sip of wine. "Now it feels like his feelings are his problem, not mine. I don't have to fix them." "Exactly," Lucy nodded emphatically. My phone buzzed with texts from Richard. "Where are you? I'm at your apartment." "We need to talk, Emily. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene for nothing. Come home so we can sort this out." I didn't respond, and eventually they stopped coming. Instead, I focused on enjoying the evening with Lucy, talking about the future, the meeting with Lux Beauty, the potential book deal, all the possibilities suddenly opening up. Around midnight, Olivia called to let me know Richard had gone home. "I just wanted to let you know that Richard is back at his house now. He was pretty worked up, but I convinced him to leave." "Thank you, Olivia," I said sincerely. The next morning, I woke to a flood of emails, including one from Diane Reynolds' assistant at Lux Beauty, setting up a meeting for later that week. There was also an email from my lawyer, Samantha, asking me to call her. "Richard's lawyer contacted me," Samantha said when I called. "They're pushing hard for a meeting to discuss division of assets, focusing particularly on your company." I sighed. "What's our next move?" "I've prepared a response outlining why your company is not a marital asset," Samantha explained. "I've documented how you built it without his knowledge or contribution, using separate funds. Plus, we have his public statements dismissing your business capabilities, which helps our case." After hanging up, I felt a renewed determination. Richard had tried to make me small for years. Now, when I had proven him wrong in the most public way possible, he wanted to claim a piece of my success. Lucy drove me back to my apartment to pick up more clothes. As we approached my building, I noticed Richard sitting on the steps outside. "You've got to be kidding me," Lucy muttered. "Want me to drive around the block?" I shook my head. "No, I can't avoid him forever." Richard stood as we approached, pointedly ignoring Lucy. "Emily, finally, we need to talk." "I told you, Richard. Anything you have to say can go through our lawyers," I replied calmly. "Our lawyers?" he repeated incredulously. "Is that what we've come to? After 7 years of marriage? You lost the right to a face-to-face conversation when you tore up my Forbes photo and told me I was nothing without you," I said, my voice steady. Richard's face flushed. "I was shocked. You blindsided me. What did you expect?" "I expected my husband to be proud of me," I replied simply. "I expected the man who promised to love and support me to actually do that." I have supported you, Richard insisted, his voice rising. Who paid the bills while you played with your little creams and lotions? Who gave you a beautiful home? First, I contributed to our household expenses from the beginning, I said evenly. Second, those little creams and lotions are now valued at $20 million. And third, a beautiful home doesn't compensate for years of emotional belittlement. Richard's expression shifted, becoming calculating. 20 million? The news said 15. Of course, that would be what he focused on. The initial offer was 15, I explained. It's been revised upward. And no, you don't have a claim to it. We'll see about that, Richard said coldly. You built this business while we were married. That makes it a marital asset. Not when you had no knowledge of it, contributed nothing to it, and actively discouraged me. But again, this is a conversation for our lawyers. I moved to step past him, but Richard grabbed my arm. You're not walking away from me again, he hissed. Lucy stepped between us. Take your hand off her right now, she said, her voice deadly quiet. Or I swear to God, Richard, you'll regret it. For a moment, we stood frozen. Then Richard released my arm, stepping back. This isn't over, Emily, he said. You think you can humiliate me on national television and just walk away with everything? The only person who humiliated you is yourself, I replied, and I'm not walking away with everything, just what rightfully belongs to me. With that, Lucy and I entered my building, leaving Richard fuming on the sidewalk. Inside my apartment, I quickly packed more clothes and essentials. As I gathered my things, my phone rang with another unknown number. Hello? I answered. Ms. Collins, this is Jennifer Wu from The Ellen Show. We'd love to have you on as a guest next week to share your story. Would you be interested? I nearly dropped the phone in surprise. Yes, I'd be very interested, I managed to say. After arranging the details and hanging up, I turned to Lucy with wide eyes. That was The Ellen Show. They want me to be a guest. Lucy squealed and hugged me. Emily, you're becoming an inspiration to women everywhere. It was true. What had started as a personal moment of triumph, showing Richard my Forbes cover, had evolved into something much larger. My experience was striking a chord with countless women who had been diminished or underestimated. As we left my apartment, we found Richard still waiting outside the building. The Ellen Show just called, I told him, not sure why I felt compelled to share this. Perhaps I wanted him to understand that this wasn't just about our marriage anymore. Richard stared at me, his face unreadable. You're enjoying this, aren't you? The attention. You always wanted to be special. His words were meant to cut, to diminish my accomplishments once again, but they fell flat. No, Richard, I said quietly. I never wanted to be special. I just wanted to be valued. There's a difference. We drove away, leaving him standing alone, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. The meeting with Diane Reynolds of Luxe Beauty 2 days later exceeded all expectations. She wasn't just interested in acquiring my company. She wanted me to stay on as the face of the brand and head of product development. Your story is as compelling as your products, Diane explained. Women connect with both. We don't want to just buy your formulas. We want your vision, your voice. The offer she laid out was staggering. $25 million for the company, plus a generous salary and percentage of future profits. As I left the Luxe Beauty headquarters, I felt a profound sense of validation. This wasn't Richard begrudgingly acknowledging my accomplishments. This was one of the most successful women in the beauty industry recognizing my worth. That evening, as Lucy and I celebrated with champagne, my lawyer called with an update. Richard's team has withdrawn their claim on your business, Samantha announced. They're focusing instead on the house and other joint assets. I nearly choked on my champagne. They've withdrawn the claim? Just like that? Just like that, Samantha confirmed. I suspect his lawyer advised him it was a losing battle, especially given the public nature of his dismissal of your business abilities. After hanging up, I shared the news with Lucy. He's backing down, she marveled. Richard Collins is actually backing down. It's strategic, I said. He knows he can't win this particular fight. Still, Lucy insisted, it's a victory. He tried to claim credit for your success, and he failed. She was right. It was a victory, one of many that were adding up to a complete transformation of my life. The next week passed in a blur. I appeared on The Ellen Show, where I received a standing ovation. I signed the deal with Luxe Beauty, officially becoming a multimillionaire. I gave interviews to major magazines, all wanting to hear about the woman who had built a secret empire. When the divorce papers were finally signed, Richard and I met one last time in our lawyer's office. He looked tired, diminished somehow. The confident, controlling man who had dominated our marriage was gone. "I hope you're happy with what you've done," he said as we waited for the final documents. "I am," I replied simply. "You've destroyed everything we built together," he continued, a hint of bitterness in his voice. I looked at him directly, feeling nothing but a distant sadness for what could have been. "No, Richard. I finally built something for myself. There's a difference." He had no response, and we signed the papers in silence. As I left the office, walking into the bright spring sunshine, I felt a profound sense of closure. The chapter of my life that included Richard was finally over. I called my mother. "It's done," I told her. "The divorce is final." "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" she asked. I paused, considering. After 7 years of doubting myself, of making myself smaller to accommodate Richard's ego, of secretly building something while being told I wasn't capable, how did freedom feel? "I feel like myself again," I said finally. "Like I've remembered who I was, always meant to be." "That's my girl," my mother said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. 3 months later, I stood on a stage before an audience of 500 women at the launch event for the Hidden Potential Foundation, an organization I had created to support women entrepreneurs facing the same discouragement I had experienced. "Many of you know my story," I began. "How I built a company in secret because the person closest to me didn't believe I could succeed. How that same person tore up my Forbes cover on my birthday, not knowing the magazine had already been published." There was a murmur through the audience. Some had heard my story, others were hearing it for the first time. "What you might not know is what happened next," I continued. "Yes, I walked away from a controlling marriage. Yes, I sold my company for $25 million, but the real story, the one that matters most, is about the women who reached out to me afterward. Women who said, 'That's my story too.' Women who had been diminished, dismissed, told they weren't enough." I gestured to the side of the stage, where Jasmine, the makeup artist from CNN who had been inspired by my story to open her own salon, stood with 4 other women, all recipients of the foundation's first grants. Women like these incredible entrepreneurs who just needed someone to say, "Yes, you can do this. Yes, your vision matters." The audience broke into applause as the 5 women joined me on stage. "I stand before you not as a victim who overcame, but as a woman who reclaimed her power. And my hope is that each of you will do the same, whether that means starting a business, ending a relationship that diminishes you, or simply speaking your truth without apology." Looking out at the audience, women of all backgrounds and circumstances, I felt a profound sense of purpose. This was why everything had happened the way it did. "So here's to hidden potential," I said, raising a glass. "May we all have the courage to reveal it, and the wisdom to recognize it in others." The room erupted in cheers. As I embraced the grant recipients, I caught sight of Lucy in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she applauded. Richard had been wrong about so many things, but his greatest misjudgment was believing that tearing up my Forbes cover would diminish me. Instead, it had become the catalyst for something far greater, a movement that would help countless women reclaim their power, just as I had reclaimed mine. As I looked out at the room full of women embarking on their own journeys of empowerment, I felt nothing but gratitude for the struggles that had led me here, for the strength I had found within myself, and for the opportunity to turn my pain into purpose. This was just the beginning.